And we are live once again. Good evening, folks. Welcome to Friday Night Tech Talk. I'm Mobile Geezer, which you know if you're on my YouTube channel, but you might be watching on one of my two Facebook IDs, either Mobile Geezer or George Hayes. So we simulcast on all three at the same time. If you're new here, we do this every Friday night. We go over some of the stories from last Friday to this Friday, some of the tech stories that I find interesting or I think might be a big tech story of the week. I either pick stories that I find particularly interesting and I think other tech heads like me might find interesting, or I find the big one. And Brian was in here first. He was in here half an hour ago. And I said, glad you're back with us. He said, glad to be back. Made it out before Hurricane Milton. I gather last week when he wasn't here, he was down in Orlando. So his timing was very, very good. So if you're new here, please type something in the comments. Let us know you're here and let us know where you're from. Pardon me. And as I do every week, you can see tonight's show notes, and I will show you them on my webpage. So let me share screen here. Okay, if you want to follow along in the notes, and you can click on the links in the stories just as I'm going through them. I've got, I think, 6 articles tonight. So if you go to mobilegeezer.wordpress.com, click on today's date, you'll get just the articles for tonight or tonight's show notes. So, as I do every week, I'll give you a little preview. I always start with one that it's not the heavy story of the week. That's usually my second story, usually trying to give people time to get in. So, my first one is Microsoft Outlook outage is fixed. I gather yesterday morning, Thursday morning, there was an Outlook outage for a little while, I gather around the world. So I found that story on Tech Radar, so we'll take a look at that. Then we're going to follow that up with what I think is the heavy-duty tech story of the week. Elon announces Cybercab, says Model 3 and Model Y will have full self-driving in California and Texas by next year. Now, I stayed up last night because he had scheduled that for 7 p.m. Pacific time, which is 10 o'clock my time on the East Coast. And of course, I work Friday, but I stayed up because I wanted to make sure I got that story, and I wanted to stay up long enough to find a good article about it. Well, luckily for me, TechCrunch wrote an article, I guess, as soon as Elon finished speaking, because that article was up really quickly. So I've got that article. And so I called it Cybercab, but he calls it Cybercab, and he still also calls it Robo Taxi, which he's been promising for at least 8 years. So last night was the event, so we'll go over that. And it was kind of a nice event. It was a fancy event. And we'll talk about some of the things that we believe that Elon said. Is Elon being too optimistic, as he often is? So we'll talk about that looking at the TechCrunch article. And I'll be able to make some comments because I did watch the whole thing. After that, is a Google breakup inevitable? We may find out soon. Got a story on Tom Scott, and there's a bunch of people saying that Google may have to be broken up. So we'll find out about that on Tom's Guide. And 2 Googlers included in this week's trio of chemistry and Nobel Prize winners. So both these gentlemen from Google DeepMind won the Nobel Prize for chemistry, and another gentleman too. Well, we'll see that in the story. And that I found on The Verge. After that, Google must allow third-party app stores after permanent injunction. That story's on Phonomy, and this is the continued follow-up to Epic suing Google, and of course, they already won their Apple suit. So this is going to be more and more following up. So this is the next piece of that story. And finally, I found a story on BGR. Can Google fix the Gemini in Pixel Studio photos so we can distinguish between the real and fake? Because as with my Pixel 9 Pro and on Pixel Studio, they can both create photos so realistic that are totally phony. And if you're creating those kind of pictures, you want people to know it. So we'll go over that story on BGR. So, so my first one was about Outlook. Brian says Outlook is trash. Now I use Outlook. I use Gmail and Outlook. I probably use Gmail more, but I gather Brian doesn't use Outlook, so that's probably good because he wouldn't have to deal with it yesterday morning. So, nothing else new in the comments. So, and if, of course, if Will or Mike by some miracle, or even Ted shows up, I will certainly let you guys know. Otherwise, it'll probably be a fairly quick night, as it usually is when I'm by myself. So, starting with the first story, Outlook. So I just said Microsoft outage is fixed, so they tell us. So let's go to TechRadar and take a look. And this was from yesterday. Outlook down. Microsoft confirms issues with the email service, but a fix is now here. Microsoft Outlook went down. Here's what we know by Mike Moore, last updated yesterday, of course. So let's go into review, get rid of some of these ads. If you logged in for work this morning and found you couldn't access your emails, don't worry. It wasn't just you. Microsoft Outlook had a major blip today. And just like when I was still programming, most companies use Outlook for their email. So if you were at work, you were probably up the creek for a while. Thousands of users across the world reported issues with the email service with complaints of failed launches, memory-intensive running, and more. Microsoft has found a solution and is urging users to refresh or restart their Outlook instance. You can read all the advice below. So if all you had to do was restart it, that was a very good thing. So that was at 2:08 p.m. in the afternoon, I guess. No, that was in the morning. I guess the next one was 2:08. Initial feedback looks good, and the ads reports on Down Detector are falling. Oh, and it just updated itself. Why would it do that now? Okay. So this could well be the end of the Outlook ads. If you're still having trouble, drop us a line. So this was all continuing yesterday. 2:07, we have a fix. Microsoft has confirmed it has a solution and users should restart and refresh. So I guess they put the fix in that fast. We may finally have a breakthrough. It's about to roll out a possible solution, hopefully. Okay. Oh, I see. So let's go from the bottom up. Usually if you go from the bottom up, you can follow these things easier. Okay, 11:45 p.m. It looks like that's when this was started. Users began reporting issues around 9 a.m. Eastern time. So 11:45 a.m. they acknowledged the issue. 11:47 a.m. you can see in America here, Minneapolis, Chicago, New York, Washington, and like I said, around the world. The issue was initially thought to only affect users in Europe, but as this Down Detector the heat map showed, is now spreading across the U.S. 11:53 a.m. Reports have now topped the 2,000 marker, which means it's continuing to. So this kept going on for a few hours, obviously. 12 p.m. The end may be in sight. We're seeing a slight drop in reports. So I guess down here went up here. Now it started falling down here. So this must be in European time, I'm guessing. Okay, 12:49 p.m. However, it seems like Microsoft itself is still struggling to find a concrete fix. So by 12:49 p.m. Eastern time, obviously they hadn't had a fix yet. 12:50 says it's about to roll out. So a minute later, they notified people they had a solution. 1:29 p.m. they had a fix. And I guess whatever they did, all you had to do was restart your Outlook session. 2:07 p.m. initial feedback looks good, and ads reports down detector are falling. So it looks like that was kind of the end of the whole thing. So it looks like it went from 9 in the morning and was completely gone by 2 in the afternoon. So for people that were at work, which most jobs have Outlook, it must have been pretty bad, because I know when I was still working in offices, especially some of my bosses, the first thing they had to do in the morning was get all their emails, sometimes hundreds of them. So I could see that would have driven people crazy. So glad they got that fixed so quickly. They don't tell us why, I notice. Okay. Nothing new in the comments. The last comment is still Brian's Outlook is trash. So we now know. All right. Now, what I consider to be the big story of the week, this is all from last night, and there were a whole bunch of videos today talking about this event. So, Elon announced that Cybercab, says Model 3 and Model Y, will have full self-driving, which he's been promising for years, in California and Texas by next year, which tells me they must have gotten permission in California and Texas, because as you'll see, if you don't have a steering wheel and pedals, you have to have special permission. So let's go into the story on TechCrunch, and we'll read about it. Like I said, they got this up very quickly. Before the event officially ended, this was up. Tesla reveals 20 Cybercabs, and yes, they had 20 of these Cybercabs. That's what they look like. At We Robot, that's what they called it, the We Robot event. Says you'll be able to buy one for less than $30,000. Now we'll see that Elon said that, but he didn't. He suspects it'll be. He didn't say for sure. So you should be aware of that. But that seemed like a pretty good price. And let's see. This, like I said, this was yesterday by Rebecca Bellan, I guess. And it was at 9:11 p.m. Pacific time. So this was at 12 o'clock. Oh, yeah. And the event was scheduled for 7 p.m. Pacific. He was an hour late. It started almost exactly at 8 p.m. their time, 11 p.m. our time. But I still stayed up and watched it. So let's go into Read-A-View and read about it. Tesla has finally revealed its Cybercab, or some people say Robotaxi, and it looks like a smaller, sleeker, two-seater Cybertruck. Now, that does not look like a Cybertruck to me, but that's just me. Let's go back and look at it again. I don't see how that looks like a Cybertruck, but that's just my opinion. You guys let me know what you think. We'll get back to Read-A-View. And while many were expecting there to be at least one prototype of a robotaxi with no steering wheel or pedals, Tesla CEO Elon Musk delighted his fans with a lineup of 20 vehicles. Yeah, when he said there were 20 vehicles, people just went crazy, and the applause was enormous. The flashy now get this, the flashy We Robot event took place at Warner Brothers Discovery Studio on Thursday. So the entire thing was in the Warner Brothers studio, which means they had some streets and stuff to work with, but this wasn't a real world test. Be aware of that. Before walking on stage an hour late, Musk walked over to a robotaxi, and the cameras did show him coming out of a building there, getting in one of the cars, and the cars drove him a few blocks by itself and got him to the stage. which opened its gold wing doors and did a short demo around the well-maintained streets of the Hollywood studio. So like I say, it was driving in the streets, it was driving by itself, but it wasn't a real test because there was nobody in the streets. They were in a studio. Musk repeated previous claims that the cost of autonomous transport would be so low. He emphasized that it would be akin to individualized mass transit. He said he believed the average operating cost of the Cybercab will be over time, and that was key, around 20 cents per mile. So I think he said the average cost of today operating cost of a cab is $1 per mile. So he said over time, Cybercab would bring it down to about 20 cents. But keep in mind, when he says over time, that means it's going to start out expensive, and as tech tends to do, then it's going to get cheaper. Let's see, Brian says, a coupe taxi doesn't seem practical. Some people said that. It's only a two-seater. That's, and some people were saying that in some of the videos I watched while I was riding around in the back of the van today. When I work on Mondays and Thursdays and Fridays, I have to go pick up cars from one location, one enterprise location, and deliver them to another. So either he's taking us there and I'm sitting in back and I can watch videos or whatever, or he's picking us up. So that's how I get the time to watch this stuff when I'm at work. Brian also says, this won't work in crowded cities. Yeah, I mean, you think about New York, you think about San Francisco, two-seater. How many robo-taxis are you going to have on the street if it's only two-seaters? My guess is they're going to have to come up with more. Now, they do have a little bus type thing, too. So we'll come to that in the article. Let's see. Musk repeated, sorry about that. And you will be able to buy one, Musk said, adding that the cost of the vehicle would be below $30,000. Now, of course, when he said that, everybody cheered because that does seem like a very reasonable price. But keep in mind, Elon has a history of saying something would be cheap, and then when it comes out, it's always more expensive. Remember, when he first announced the Cybertruck, he said it was going to be, I think he said $40,000, certainly $60,000 at some point. Well, the cheapest one you could get when it came out was $100,000. And I guess the cheapest one you're going to be able to get is going to be $80,000. So he's often wrong about that, but let's hope he's right. Musk also noted he expects Tesla to start doing unsupervised full self-driving in Texas and California next year with the Model 3 and Model Y. Now, of course, they've been promising full self-driving in both of those models for a number of years now, but I guess he must have already gotten approval in Texas and California for these cars to be full self-driving with nobody touching anything. So that's probably why it's starting in California and Texas. He acknowledged that he's too optimistic about timelines, which we all know, but said he expects the Cybercab to be in production by 2026 or before 2027. And that is what he said. He said 2026, and then he said, let's just say before 2027. Now, of course, when he said that, that means 2026 or 2025 from where we are now. But either way, he says before 2027, the Cybercab should be in production. Now, with his track record, if it's 28, 29, nobody would be surprised. Fans cheered when Musk said they'd be able to test out the Cybercab themselves at the event. And yes, when he finished speaking and people were able to go outside, there were people with kids getting in the cars, taking rides. So people were pretty excited. And of course, being in a enclosed environment like the studio, yeah, it was very safe. They have 20 of them driving around the entire lot, totally unsupervised. One event goer told TechRun, yeah, they had 20 of them. It was pretty cool. And the Robotaxi also doesn't have a plug-in charger and instead has inductive charging, which is a sort of wireless charging, according to so it doesn't have to be plugged in. Now, here we're seeing the word robovan, but when he first started talking about it, he said robovan. Yeah, robovan. And then he said some people call it a robovan. And Optimus, of course, is the robot. So this is what the robovan will look like. I gather it can hold up to 20 people. Tesla unveiled a surprise robovan at the event. Yeah, nobody had talked about that beforehand. A sleek-looking autonomous bus that can carry up to 20 people and also transport goods. No timelines were revealed for this vehicle, only a hand-waving of future that could change the look of the road. So it drove up in front of him while he was talking on stage, but nothing else was said about when that would be available. Musk also introduced roughly a dozen Optimus humanoid robots, sharing his vision for a future where robots act as friend and helper for the low price. Here we go again. Let's hope he's right. Around $20,000 to $30,000. These bots were walking among the humans, yes, they were, at the event, dancing like go-go dancers and even mixing drinks. And when he first said they'd be mixing drinks as it went on, it looked like the robots were at the bars handing out these packages of drinks. But a little while later, they looked like they were literally mixing drinks. Now, some people thought that might have been somebody operating the robots off stage, but maybe nobody's sure if they were real or not. They also appeared to be speaking to the guests, and we didn't hear any of that, but it did look like the guests were speaking to them and could do different accents and voice personas on command. Now, of course, we didn't hear that part. Though it's not clear whether those capabilities and the bot's movements were being, there you go, remote controlled by a human. Like I said, nobody was sure. History and context. Tesla was originally slated to reveal its robotaxi or cybercab in August, but delayed the unveiling after the executive requested an important design change to the front. So they didn't tell us what that design change was. The robotaxi unveiling is part of Tesla's push to go balls to the wall for autonomy this year after pivoting from prioritizing the production of a $25,000 EV and laying off 10% of staff, which they did earlier in the year, including most of the charging team. Yeah, that was a big deal. When Musk's vision of an autonomous driving future, Musk's vision of an autonomous driving future has been in play for years, at least since 2016. And a large part of the reason why investors price Tesla's stock not as an automaker, but as a technology company. And Elon's trying hard to get car company out of people's heads and robot and tech company in people's heads. So that's what a lot of this is about and will be going forward. Let's see. Ryan says, this is as true as it gets. Elon overpromises and underdelivers. Now, because I've never driven an Elon product, so I can't say about underdelivers, but he does tend to overpromise, and he acknowledges that sometimes. So, the Cybercab prototype represents one half of the business concept Musk has set forth since at least 2019, wherein the automaker would run its own fleet of dedicated robotaxis on a Tesla ride-hail app, which Tesla teased during its first quarter investor call. So I guess they're going to have their own taxi company. Which I keep wondering, does that mean other taxi companies can buy them? I would think they probably could. Musk has described the other half of the strategy as similar to Uber or Airbnb, where Tesla owners will be able, now get this, will be able to add their probably equipped vehicles to Tesla's ride-hailing app to make extra money when the cars are not in use, and Tesla will take 20 to 30% of the revenue, similar to Apple's App Store take rate. So the idea is, and Elon stressed the fact that most cars only get used 10% of the time. The rest of the 90% of the time, they're sitting there doing nothing. So he's saying, once they give you full self-driving, you could take these cars and make money with them, and they take a cut, which I had never heard of that, but it kind of makes sense, assuming they do work, which I guess we'll find out next year. Musk also said that Tesla projected that robotaxi rides would cost less than public transportation. Yeah, he stressed that, but he didn't say by when. And of course, it's always starting at one price and bringing it down. By the middle of next year, we'll have over 1 million Tesla cars on the road with full self-driving hardware. So we think. Feature complete and at a reliability level that we would consider that no one needs to pay attention, meaning you could go to sleep. He's stressing that. So I gather he really thinks he's close after all these years of promising it. Because I've even heard MKBHD complain that he keeps saying full self-driving, but his car, he's got 2 or 3 Teslas, and none of them are full self-driving yet. Musk said at Tesla's 2019 Autonomy Day, from our standpoint, if you fast forward a year, maybe a year and 3 months, but a year for sure. Now, this was back in 2019. We will have over 1 million robo-taxis on the road. Well, here we are 5 years later, not yet. The fleet wakes up with an over-the-air update. That's all it takes. That, of course, didn't happen by 2020, which was when he promised it would. Tesla's full self-driving software, which is on hundreds of thousands of vehicles today, it's there, relies only on cameras to perceive the environment around it. And this is one of the big problems people have with it. Tesla resides strictly on hundreds of cameras, and the car sees everything. But LiDAR is supposed to be much more accurate, which Google's Waymo uses, and I gather they've been much more successful with self-driving in San Francisco and Los Angeles. So some people think this is not going to work until Tesla starts putting some LiDAR on their cars also. I don't know, but it certainly sounds to me like LiDAR is much more effective and better at spotting what it needs because it's using lasers. Industry experts say this vision-only approach is the reason why the software is still not actually fully self-driving, despite its name. In other words, it doesn't have any LiDAR, it just has cameras. FSD can perform many automated driving tasks, but still requires a human behind the wheel to stay attentive to take over if needed. It's also not clear that existing Teslas even have the right hardware to get this full self-driving future that Musk has been promising for years. As Musk posted on X in July, the roughly 5 times increase in parameter count needed to power Tesla's next-gen AI is very difficult to achieve without upgrading the vehicle interface computer. Yeah, because it's relying on these cameras. And is that doable? Well, nobody's sure. Regardless, if Tesla wants to commercialize level 4 autonomous driving, which means the vehicle can drive itself under certain conditions without needing a human to take over, it will need to prove the safety case. Yes, it will. Tesla has been under numerous federal investigations for fatal crashes that happened while autopilot, Tesla's lower-level advanced driving system, was in place. Yeah, they've been investigated a number of times because people have been killed in these cars with the autopilot, working and, well, obviously not working properly. California has the most rigorous permitting process for testing and deployment of autonomous vehicles, but in most other states, Tesla would have to show at a minimum that its vehicles are capable of pulling themselves over safely. Yeah, because the cars were originally developed in California, so they were able to keep up with the laws as they went along. Now, the headquarters is in Austin. Then there's the matter of the Cybercab's lack of steering wheels or pedals. Yeah, has neither one. No pedals, no steering wheels, which would put it out of compliance with federal vehicle safety laws. So I guess they've gotten around that in California and Texas. Seems like. GM's Cruise had previously tried to bring its purpose-built robotaxi, the Origin, to production, but failed to gain the necessary approvals from the National Highway Traffic and Safety Administration before scrapping the project. So I have to assume that Elon or Tesla has gotten approval from the NHTS. So otherwise, I don't see how he could be promising it for next year. And he certainly sounds certain about that much. So we'll see. But it was kind of exciting to watch the event, and it was kind of cool to see them driving around, even though the streets were empty, except for the few people that were getting rides. So a very interesting event. And like I said, people have been waiting for this for so long. It was kind of the big deal of the week. So, all right, nothing new. So always glad we've got Brian here to keep up with this stuff and to engage with us. All right, so now I said, is a Google breakup inevitable? We may find out soon. And this was on Tom's Guide, so let's go check it out. Again, from yesterday, Justice Department may order a Google breakup, force it to sell Chrome, Android, and more, by Dave LeClaire. And I've seen 5 or 6 different videos talking about the same thing. It seems like the Justice Department may really be serious about forcing Google to break up. So we'll see. This could change the tech landscape as we know it. Let's jump into review. Things could change for Google in a big way in the near future. Apparently, the U.S. Department of Justice might ask a federal judge, or they haven't asked yet, to force Google to sell parts of its business, as reported by CBS News. And it wouldn't be the first time. Think about AT&T back in the 80s. While it's still early to make any kind of proclamation about the future of Google, if the company is forced to sell off portions of its business due to being too dominant, it could change the tech landscape as we know it. Yeah, absolutely. Not only might the Department of Justice make Google sell off pieces, but federal prosecutors also said the judge could ask the court to open the data it uses to power its popular search engine and AI products to competitors. So it could force them to let their competitors use their search engine or use what's behind their search engine. Google obviously has some key secrets that make its search engine work. Secrets the company stays ahead of with consistent algorithm changes. Yeah, they do consistently change them. Having these made public would cause a significant shift in how search rankings work. Sure would change the entire business. Google also has very lucrative deals with companies. Yeah, and this is what got them in trouble in the EU, like Apple and Samsung, which keep its search engine as the default option and allow it to further control the market. Google currently has deals with Samsung to share revenue from the Play Store and with Apple for search traffic on Safari. The DOJ isn't happy about these deals and may squash them. It also aims to stop Google from using its products like Chrome, Google Play, and Android to give its search and related services a competitive advantage. Yeah, and I think the EU has already stopped them over there. Whether that happens by forcing Google to sell those parts of its business or by limiting how the company can leverage its other products remains to be seen. I'm sure the lawyers are doing lots of talking. For more than a decade, Google has controlled the most popular distribution channels, leaving rivals with little to no incentive to compete for users, the antitrust enforcers wrote. Fully remedying these harms requires not only ending Google's control of distribution today, but also ensuring Google cannot control the distribution of tomorrow. In response, Google's Vice President of Regulatory Affairs, Leon Mulholland, said in response to the filing that the DOJ was already signaling requests that go far beyond the specific legal issues. As you might expect, the Google representative cited government overreach, and negative unintended consequences for American innovation and America's consumers. So, of course, they're going to say, well, you're going to hurt consumers. Whether this is a case of overreaching will be determined as more filings and information come out. But it's certainly something for everyone in the tech industry to keep an eye on, that's for sure. This is far from Google's first run-in with the U.S. government, as District Judge Amit Mehta, which we reported on this story, that Google's search engine has been illegally exploiting its dominance in August. And then we've reported on that story twice already. Between that ruling and the potential for the DOJ to ask a federal judge to force Google to sell parts of its business, it appears that the search giant is in for a fight if it wants to keep operating the way it has been. It certainly doesn't sound like they're going to be able to keep operating the way they have been. So very interesting stuff, and this could have a profound effect on the tech industry as a whole if a breakup does happen. But of course, we'll keep you updated, folks. All right, nothing new in the comments, so we will go on. And again, it's probably going to be an early night. This was a cool story. 2 Googlers included in this week's trio of chemistry Nobel Prize winners. This was on The Verge. So, Google AI scientists win Nobel Prize in chemistry. The winners were awarded for their work on protein structure, which opens up vast possibilities, by Jess Weatherbed, and this was from 2 days ago. So let's jump into review. The Nobel Prize in Chemistry was awarded to 3 scientists today, 2 of whom are significant figures at Google DeepMind for their work around proteins, which the Nobel Prize Committee describes as the chemical tools of life. DeepMind CEO Demis Hassabis and senior DeepMind research scientist John Jumper received the award for creating the open source AlphaFold 2 AI model to calculate the structure of human proteins. And I believe they both work in Great Britain. With its help, they have been able to predict the structure of virtually all the 200 million proteins that researchers have identified, the Nobel Committee at the Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences said in its announcement. That's pretty impressive, 200 million proteins. David Baker, who shares the prize, this is the other guy who won, who doesn't work for Google, with Hassabis and Jumper, was awarded for computational protein design. The Nobel Committee noted that Baker had successfully designed a new protein in 2003 that was unlike any other and has since developed new proteins for pharmaceuticals, vaccines, nanomaterials, and tiny sensors over the last 2 decades. Tiny sensors sounds like a very vague term to me. Of the discoveries being recognized this year concerns the construction. One of the discoveries being recognized this year concerns the construction of spectacular proteins. The other is about fulfilling a 50-year-old dream, predicting protein structures from their amino acid sequences, which is, I guess, what both those guys did, said Nobel Chemistry Committee Chair Heiner Linke. Both of these discoveries open up vast possibilities. The scientific applications for AlphaFold 2 include helping researchers to understand antibiotic resistance and develop plastic-degrading enzymes. That's good, I guess, according to the Nobel Committee. Work that once took years now takes just a few minutes thanks to this year's chemistry laureates, the Nobel Committee said on this. So If that does, that AlphaFold 2 help understand how to degrade plastic, how to develop plastic degrading enzymes, I guess we could fix some of the problems of plastics in the oceans. So anyway, I gather it's well deserved by all three of these gentlemen. So I just thought it was a cool story and cool that a couple of guys at Google also won. So, all right, nothing else new. We will continue on. Let me get a swig of my green tea. All right, next story. No, this is again the part of the Epic suing Google ongoing battle. Another part. Google must allow third-party app stores after permanent injunction. This is on Phone Arena. New ruling, and this is kind of continuous stuff. New ruling on Epic case forces Google to open the Play Store to competitors. Google responds. Now, of course, they've already been forced to do this in Europe. So this was by Joanna Romero and updated 3 days ago. So drop into read a bit to get rid of some of the ads. A U.S. district judge has issued a permanent injunction against Google, so they're going to have to do this, forcing the company to allow third-party app stores access to the Google Play library and make those alternate app stores available for download in the Play Store. So they'll be able to put theirs in the Play Store also. This ruling comes after a 4-year antitrust battle with Epic Games. Google has stated it will appeal the injunction, citing concerns about competition with Apple and potential security risks. Well, they're probably going to make Apple do the same thing at some point. The injunction also impacts billing practices. Google can no longer require developers to use its billing system or prevent them from informing users about cheaper payment options. Yeah, Apple has the same problem in Europe, and they've already had to give it over there. Additionally, Google cannot make deals to exclusively launch apps on Google Play or pre-install its store on new hardware. Microsoft went through some of this back in 2002, I believe. A 3-person committee formed by Google and Epic Games will monitor Google's compliance and address any technical issues arising from the ruling. So 3 people. So are 2 going to be from Epic or 2 going to be from Google? Because I'm thinking that's going to be key to how this gets done. Google has expressed its disagreement with the decision, so I'm guessing it's going to be 2 from Epic, arguing that Android's open platform already provides developers with various app distribution options. How all this started. And of course, we've reported on this enough that you probably know this. In December, a jury found Google's Play Store to be in violation of U.S. antitrust law, stating that the company held an illegal monopoly on app distribution and in-app billing for Android devices. The jury also concluded that Google's agreements with other gaming companies and device manufacturers were anti-competitive. It's important to highlight how this ruling diverges from the Epic Games lawsuit against Apple, so 2 different lawsuits. While both cases centered on antitrust concerns and App Store practices, the outcomes were significantly different. In the Apple case, the court largely sided with Apple. Epic got a smaller win there, maintaining the company's control over its App Store and in-app payment systems. Epic currently advertises on its website the current state of availability of its app. The difference likely stems from the fundamental difference between iOS and Android. iOS is a closed ecosystem, very much so, while Android allows for sideloading and alternative app stores. This distinction played a key role in the court's decision, highlighting the greater flexibility and openness of the Android platform. That last point is currently being challenged by Epic, though. With a lawsuit that was recently filed, and we reported on that, against both Google and Samsung, citing how both companies are currently making the sideloading process a more convoluted one. And we gave you a good report on that last week or the week before. And Annette's in here. Glad to see you in here, Annette. Glad you could join us, as always. Okay. Google responds and warns of unintended negative consequences. What else would they say? Google has responded to the ruling, stating that the mandated changes would jeopardize consumer privacy. Isn't that already jeopardized? And security, hinder developers' ability to promote their apps, and stifle competition among device manufacturers. Thank you, Brian, so much. As always, always appreciate it, sir. The company believes these changes, while potentially satisfying Epic Games, will have unintended consequences that negatively impact American consumers. They always say that. Developers and device makers. Maybe they're right, but they always say the same thing. Google contends that the decision contradicts the previous ruling in the similar case Epic brought against Apple. Yeah, but they're separate cases, despite Android being an open platform that has always allowed for choice and flexibility, including multiple app stores and sideloading. The company plans to appeal the decision and seek a pause on Epic's requested changes pending the appeal. Google maintains that Android has fostered choice, lowered prices, and democratized access to smartphones and apps. The company believes the initial decision and Epic's requested changes threaten these achievements and undermine Android's ability to compete with Apple's iOS because of the closed system. The company also maintains that it remains committed to advocating for the best interests of developers, device manufacturers, and Android users worldwide. What else would they say? This news is certainly interesting from a consumer's perspective. More competition in the App Store market could lead to lower prices and more choice for users. I would certainly think it would. However, it also brings up valid concerns about security and fragmentation. Yeah, more fragmentation we don't need, I don't think. It will certainly be interesting to see how this plays out over the next few years and what impact it will have on the Android ecosystem. So yes, that will be ongoing for the next few years. And Brian, okay. So that's that one. And we'll continue on to my last story of the week. I said, can Google fix the Gemini and Pixel Studio photos so that we can distinguish between real and fake? And I found a story on BGR, and it's a very good, valid story. Is this how Google fixes the big problem caused by its own AI photos? This is by Chris Smith, published yesterday. Let's go into read review. Come on, read review. Trying to catch up. Okay, there we go. And I lost it. Let me go back. Okay, try again. I clicked one time too many, I believe. There we go. I never liked Google's AI-powered photo editing features, but I get why they're important. Features like the Magic Editor in Google Photos let you create fake photos, and this is his whole key to fake photos, of things that never happen, but they prove that Google is good at AI. They certainly do. As hot as AI is right now in the tech world, that's obviously something the company needs to prove. Google didn't stop there. The Pixel 9 series, and I've got my Pixel 9 that came with me to work today, Pixel 9 Pro, comes with new Gen AI features for images that are even more troubling. With Pixel Studio, you can generate all sorts of pictures with a single prompt, including offensive content. I haven't used Pixel Studio yet. I've just been busy, but I'll be getting around to it. More troubling still is the Reimagine feature, which lets you edit real photos with AI. The results are incredible, and they could easily fool unsuspecting people. And this is the whole point. This opens the door to abuse, as some people might use AI edited photos to mislead the public, very much so. Many people, including yours truly, pointed out these issues a few months ago and called for fixes. I actually welcome the fact that Apple Intelligence won't bring similar features to the iPhone 16 or in my case, the iPhone 15 Pro Max, though Apple might one day want to prove it can let you edit photos with AI just like Google. Meanwhile, Google seems to have been working on ways to defend the world against AI creations that can come from Pixel 9 and other devices. So supposedly they're putting in stuff that'll help us identify. Specifically, Google is working on giving the Google Photos app the ability to identify AI-generated content. So we want to be able to see that it was AI-generated, not real. Some AI-generated images might have watermarks, depending on the platform. Some will also include metadata to indicate to the user that the photo is fake. But not all internet users are savvy enough to look for either. That's true. Although also images can easily be manipulated to remove these safeguards. That's true. Most of the time, if you're going to put a watermark, it's going to be upper right-hand corner, bottom right-hand corner, something like that. But you could go into an editor and just crop that out and boom, that's gone. That's where capabilities like the ones found in an unreleased version of the Google Photos app for Android might come in handy. So we haven't seen this yet. Discovered by Android Authority, Google's Photos version 7.3 contains code entries that indicate Google might be looking to show how images were created. Might be looking, so we don't even know for sure yet. It's unclear how it will work, but Google Photos might tell a user whether an image has been produced with generative AI. It might even identify the source. That would be a very good thing for everybody to know that. If you use Google Gemini to create images or edit photos with Magic Editor, the EXIF data will include tags telling an advanced user, that's key, those images were created with Google AI. But what if Google is building a more advanced AI image identification engine in Google Photos? That would be good. That would be even better for the entire industry. After all, people share all sorts of images. Having Google Photos produce a warning that an image is fake would be fantastic. I completely agree. That said, it's unclear whether Google Photos would serve that information directly or whether you'd have to hunt for it. Let's hope it's number one. Yeah, I'd prefer the former scenario, so would I, where Google Photos proactively tells the user that an image is either generated or edited using AI. We'll soon find out how the feature works as long as Google makes it available in a future Google Photos update. So we haven't seen it yet. If Google goes this route, it would be great to see others in the industry adopt similar features for their photo apps, of course, because if you don't know it's fake, it could fool people in all kinds of ways, in all kinds of bad ways. So that's my list story for today. And as I always forget, we do have a section, for open discussion. And I usually forget to tell people, okay, folks, if you want some more open discussion, we can, put it in the comments and we can talk. Let's see. Brian said, would be interesting to do a reverse beauty mode. I'm ugly enough already, I think. A reverse beauty mode. I never thought of that. Okay. So if you guys have anything else you want to say, just put it in the comments and we'll discuss it a little bit more. Otherwise, I will get out of here. I'll just give you a few seconds and I will take another swig of my green tea. And we lasted almost an hour just with me here, so we did pretty good. And of course, the big story of the week was the Tesla Cybertruck cab or robo taxi, and we'll see if it happens. Annette, you have a good week also. And thanks everybody for coming in. As always, thank you, Brian, as always, for contributing. And I'm glad you got back before the hurricane got to Florida. So I hope everybody has a very blessed and wonderful weekend. And I will see you guys next week. Brian is saying Pixel 9 Pro XL versus OnePlus 12. I have the Pixel 9 Pro, Brian. Oh, let me stop screen. Okay. I have the Pixel 9 Pro. I don't have the XL, but if you want the Pro against the OnePlus 12, I can do that. Oh, he's asking me what's my take. Did I do that one already? I'm not even sure. Let me take a quick look. Did I go against the OnePlus? No, I guess I haven't. That's me and my thing. I'm going to have to do the challenge of one against the other. I'll probably do it. I'll try to get it done by Sunday and get it up by Sunday night, or at the very latest Monday night. Right now, I am so impressed, like a lot of other people, with the OnePlus 12. It often outdoes my iPhone and my Pixel, but I haven't put it up against the Pixel 9 Pro as yet. So let me, and Brian says the XL and the Pro are the same to me. Yeah, me too. Let me get a comparison done over the weekend, and I will get it up and let you guys judge for yourselves, especially you, Brian, judge for yourselves. But every time I use the OnePlus 12, it just impresses the heck out of me. And it seems like a lot of other people also. So, and I'm kind of looking forward to the OnePlus 13, or as soon as I can afford it anyway. But we don't know for sure when it's going to come out, other than in China, which this year, I think it was out in China a month ahead of time. So that would give me a little time to get my money together and get it, or maybe Black Friday. Anyway. I will try to get it done this weekend and let you guys judge. Meanwhile, I hope everybody has a very blessed weekend. And let's always remember we all do better when we love each other. See you guys next week.